Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and today I'm going to do 2 or 3 things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little more insight into the Greg Kidd interview and tell you what I did before the interview. And then the second thing is I'm going to show you further how under every financial rock you will find Ripple or XRP or something associated with them. And I'll further illustrate that. Then at the end, I will show you how this global reset that the World Economic Forum is talking about, this isn't just something they came up with last week. This is a marketing plan that they've had on the shelf, and now they're pulling it off the shelf and say, okay, it's time. This is not something that they just came up with as a result of the current events. That is bull. Anybody who believes that, I've told you before, I've got an igloo in Georgia that I'm ready to sell you right now. And it will melt in less than 24 hours, but it's a great igloo right now. Okay. That's sarcasm, by the way. Okay. The first thing to go into this Greg Kidd thing, I don't know if I really went into who Greg Kidd was in terms of who he was for Ripple. Here, this is a guy who was independently wealthy and retired, okay, who heard about Ripple at a card game. He hears about Ripple at a card game, and he said for him, it was like Moses coming down when he first heard this, okay? Then he says, I got to go meet these guys. Goes to Ripple, he says, I've got to figure out, now here's a guy who doesn't need the money. He says, I've got to figure out how to talk these guys into giving me a job. And he said that, and now just so you know, I did a pre-call with Greg Kidd and these guys. And Greg Kidd, I can't remember if it was in the pre-call or that, and I'm not going to say really anything from the pre-call because that's off limits. But I'm going to tell you one thing that was said. In the pre-call, it was just to meet Greg and to talk to them. I asked Greg, and I asked the CEO and the CFO of Link2 before I ever did that interview. Very specifically, I asked them, are there any questions that are off limits for me about Ripple or XRP? And I asked them not once, not twice, but 3 times. And that's one thing that should tell you a lot about Greg Kidd is he's that kind of a guy. He's a very straightforward guy, very good guy, and he has nothing to hide. And so, excuse me. So 3 times I asked if it was okay to ask anything. That's how that interview came about. Since that time, and I'll go into this further with you in this video, but since that time, they have let me know that Greg really enjoyed the interview, and they invited me to their call that they're going to do in July. So I'm excited about that. And there might be some interesting people there that you know. Could be. Okay. But who was Greg Kidd at Ripple? He literally told me that he talked them into letting him be the chief risk officer. Now, his background, remember, was at the Federal Reserve. But chief risk officer is what his title was, navigating the fraud, compliance, regulation, and reputational challenges of digital currencies and currency exchanges. So, and remember, Greg Kidd is the guy that said this, where his first basic advice to these guys is we got to go straight to the Treasury.
You kind of take that for granted. That's the way Airbnb got started and Uber. They weren't in, at that time, regulated industries. But generally things in financial services, you got to be regulated. So when I came to Ripple, that was a new blockchain. That was the second thing after Bitcoin. The first month we went to Treasury to explain what we were doing. So we didn't operate under the illusion that we would never be regulated and we would never have to ask permission. So it's finding that balance between doing something that's really innovative, but if you want to go mainstream and you're successful, you're going to run up against rules and regulations, guys with guns and badges. Yeah. So I walk that line.
Okay. So I wanted to make sure you understood that's who Greg. So if there's anybody who would understand, if there's anybody that has ever been with Ripple who would understand better than anyone what is going on from a regulatory standpoint, it's this guy, because he was the guy that led the charge. So here's the question I asked him in the interview. I wanted to show you this one again. Can Ripple IPO without a declaration that XRP is not a security? Now I want you to listen to the words he uses, and then I'm going to show you a video from the CFTC, I think chairman, that we've gone over before, and show you what it makes you think. If these guys haven't had conversations before, I would bet you that they have. Listen to what he says.
Can Ripple IPO without a declaration that XRP is not a security?
Well, and as someone who's gone through the IPO process myself, there's going to be a bunch of risk declarations, and things can be not a security and then become a security. They can be a security and then become not a security. So that is definitely going to be one of the risk disclosures if Ripple goes out without an SEC determination that it's not or is a security. The wisdom of our government is black can be white one day and white can be black the next day. So even if something is declared one thing, there's no guarantee it's going to be that thing in the future. So
right.
I don't think that's an impediment. I mean, it would be great if the SEC just rolled out the red carpet and said the Ripple stock is the security and the currency is not. But I don't see that happening. So I believe the forward motion is going to be without a definitive statement.
Okay, so basically he said something can be a security, then not be a security, and went through that whole thing. Well, I had heard that before. I've heard it more than once, but here's one of the places I've heard it. This is Heath Tarbert, CFTC Chairman, and this is from Bank XRP.
Is it a security, first and foremost? And if it's not a security, it is most likely a commodity. And so that is the initial sort of test. What I will say is the interesting thing, unlike other kinds of investment contracts, is a digital asset can transform itself throughout time. So you can have a situation where something in an initial coin offering is very much a security, but over time the system becomes more and more decentralized. The enterprise that originally sort of sponsored the currency is no longer in the fore. The thing is sort of running itself. There's an intangible value, that's there. So you can have things that actually switch back and forth. You could also imagine a scenario where something is very much decentralized, but then all of a sudden, there's a pullback. The company gets more involved in it. It starts to look more like a common enterprise where profits are derived from the activity of others, thereby meeting the Howey test. But I think all things being equal, if you approach it as, is this a security? And if you come to the conclusion it's not with the SEC, it's most likely going to be a commodity. Well,
so anyway, you can see how that same exact thought pattern is coming out of the CFTC chairman. Okay, now I had tweeted this out. I've had a lot of questions about the Greg Kidd interview. They asked me to do it. And now when I say they, the they there is Link2. Link2 is the company that is selling these SPVs, which are like units of shares of Ripple and other companies' stocks. And the important thing here is that it wasn't Ripple that asked me to do the interview. It was Link2, that company. Now, Greg Kidd is I guess one of their investors in Link2, and Link2 had asked me to do the interview. It was a private Zoom. There was over 200 angel investors from Silicon Valley and all around the world in the call, and they do these calls all the time. It was so successful that I have been invited back. They're doing another one in July, and so the way I'm looking at this, and I don't even really do interviews, but the way I'm looking at this is every time I can get on a call with people that are investors, even if they're investors in Ripple stock, every time I can get on a call where I can help to ask questions that might educate investors that are interested in Ripple equity or that are interested in XRP, it's to our benefit, and that's the way I see it. And so that is kind of my thought pattern there. Now, when I went back through the Greg Kidd interview, what's interesting is when you're doing an interview, you'll miss a lot of the answers because you're thinking about the next question, those type of things. But I've been going back through it the last couple of days, and I heard things that I didn't even really hear when I was doing the interview. This is one of the most profound for me. Are you saying that a lot of that Nostro, now remember, Brad Garlinghouse has talked about Nostro money since I started this channel. He's talked about how there's $21+ trillion parked around the world in these Nostro accounts. So we got on that topic with Greg Kidd. And I said, are you saying that a lot of that Nostro money one day is going to be in XRP? And his quote was, it's going to be replaced by XRP. And then a few lines later in the conversation, he said something I found very interesting too. See, this is something we don't ever talk about, but Ripple has to have done. We've seen some modeling in the past with Susan Athey and Robbie Mitchnick, which I'll show you in a second. But he said Ripple's done some of those calculations. In other words, the calculations of what the price of XRP would be with this Nostro money in XRP. They've done the calculations. They know that would create amazing practical demand for XRP all around the world. Okay, so Ripple's done some of those calculations. Well, here's a fundamental valuation framework for crypto assets that was done by Robbie Mitchnick and Susan Athey. Remember, Susan Athey is on Ripple's board. And Robbie Mitchnick, what about him? Well, he worked for Ripple, but then he went to run the digital asset division at BlackRock. That's him right there. All right. So the point is that the XRP, like Brad Garlinghouse said, is a part of the heartbeat of Ripple. These guys are all over this, and this XRP is not just some part of it. Oh yeah, we're just going to sell a bunch of this and try to get rich off the backs of these retail XRP investors. That's not what this is. This is a part of the freaking plan, folks. This is the big kahuna. It is part of the heartbeat. They've told you the truth from day one. It's only a matter of whether or not you listened. Okay? All right. Now, I want to show you something else that you might find a little profound. I've said 1,000 times on this channel that underneath just about every financial rock that you look, you will see Ripple and or XRP. Okay? And that's part of what's been fascinating about following this company. So XRP Crypto Wolf tweeted this out. The Interwork Alliance has launched with over 35 members, including Accenture, IBM, Hashgraph, UBS, ING, Microsoft, NASDAQ, and R3. IWA is a nonprofit dedicated to creating the standard frameworks needed to increase innovation across token-enabled ecosystems. So, this is the article. Accenture, who's an early investor in Ripple, IBM, who's partnered with Stellar. We've seen Microsoft, NASDAQ doing different things with Ripple. Digital Asset and more unveil new Token Standards Association. But as I was going through here, I was reading. What's fun to me is a lot of times when you know that Ripple's somewhere in the equation with just about every single thing like this. So I was just reading down through and I got to this part. Just out of curiosity, it says the Interwork Alliance Chairman, Marley Gray. I thought that was a pretty unique name. Marley Gray, the principal architect for Microsoft, noted in his blog post, the modern concept of tokenized value is not new. It first came from blockchain space and is unfortunately very often thought of in terms of cryptocurrency due to the early Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain networks. Okay, but this is what I wanted you to get. I saw this Marley Gray, who's the principal architect for Microsoft, and I said, might be interesting to type Marley Gray and Ripple into a Google search, and you'll never guess what comes up. Microsoft, this is from December 14th, 2015. I've never even heard of the guy's name and don't remember this article, but it popped up from Ripple's website, Ripple Insights. Microsoft's Marley Gray, Ripple and ILP will be the fabric of multi-chain future. So here you have this guy, and this was just purely by chance that I Googled this. And he says, we've been looking at blockchain in our innovation labs for quite some time, And then it says, let's see, down here he said something interesting. Right now, there's a trend toward forming consortiums around various settlement use cases, which I think will play a big role, especially on Wall Street, such as the R3 and the commodity consortium we're participating in. These consortiums will help drive collaboration, hone on our needs to stakeholders in future with technology they need to adopt, and then somewhere down here, I think he says, somewhere down here, we see Ripple and ILP becoming a part of the fabric of this multi-chain reality. Then you have Azure, which is the horizontal computing layer will provide scale management, will make sure there's regulatory compliance for data residency. We've got all the stuff covered. But then there's one other interesting thing that I don't even remember. The fact that Microsoft is running a Ripple validator has our offices buzzing naturally. How's the experience been so far on your end? It's been great. It's actually really easy to do. We initially made this big virtual machine, but realized it wasn't necessary, so we scaled it back. Overall, the performance has been very good. We're currently going through the process of getting verified. Eventually, we'll probably run more than one validator. So now we know, folks, and I didn't remember the Microsoft validator. Now we know that Microsoft plans to run not just one validator, but many validators, okay? We know that the SEC is going to run a validator. And because Brad Garlinghouse told us when Kahina Van Dyke went to Standard Chartered Bank, we know that she's going to be a node on the network away. So we know that Standard Chartered is going to run a validator. So this is where all of this is going to go, folks. But I think that that's important to point out to you. Okay, there was this from Santiment, which I had never heard of, but it says XRP has entered the top spot on Santiment's feeds emerging trends and has been massive social volume spikes. These are potential indicators of an upcoming decoupling from Bitcoin. So keep an eye on Ripple's upside since these spikes aren't pump related yet. Okay. And then there was this from Panda Ripple, Ripple Panda XRP. XRP GBP goes live on Bitstamp. Liquidity power up. That's a big deal right there. Okay, then we've got this from XRP Bart. The volume is spiking again. This is from yesterday. Liquidity index for BTC markets. XRP AUD 28-day moving. All-time high was 15.6 million. Today so far, 15.7. We keep getting records over and over and over. And then Matthew Lanai, OMFIF Think Tank Spotlight, one of the most connected financial think tanks. They did a spotlight on Ripple. I'm not going to read through all that, but the OMFIF is an independent think tank for central banking, economic policy, and public investment. Big deal. So. Then there was this from XRP Crypto Wolf. Andreessen Horowitz general partner Katie Hahn, I think that's her name, Catherine Hahn, said that in 10 years, money will be digital. We are starting to see some of the more traditional venture capital funds starting to enter into crypto. Tokens are where it's at right now and where it's going. All right, this is one of the most important venture capital firms in the world, folks, and an investor in Ripple. Okay, Matthew XRP sent me this. Now, folks, you're all of a sudden out of nowhere, we're seeing all this global reset talk. It's like it's been activated out of the World Economic Forum. So this is pandemic is chance to reset global economy, says Prince Charles. Prince of Wales unveils a 5-point plan to stimulate sustainable economic growth. And then it says, he said at the opening of a World Economic Forum virtual meeting. So all these people are on the same team. This is a plan that they've had this playbook on the shelf ready to pull when they're ready. And they are ready because look, now it says World Economic Forum. This is a tweet from them. Coming up, the Great Reset call. So this is something this isn't something that just happened because we happen to have this virus. It didn't just happen. This has been a plan for a long time. Now, look, this is their website, World Economic Forum website. They've got a whole section. It's weforum.org/great-reset. I mean, they've dedicated a part of their website, and they've got a promo video. Now, I'm going to play the promo video now. It's possible that because of music in this promo video that I may have to clip this out of this video, but I just wanted to tell you that before and after the video just in case. Here's their promo video. So they're selling it. That, my friend, look at all these garbage videos my son has been watching. These guys right here, these guys are making so much money, it's not even funny. These guys, I can't remember what the name of them, but my son's on these all the time. These guys have like millions of subscribers with, and it's just it'll be like a grown man and his son playing a video game or playing with toys on the floor. And wow, boy, do they get the views. But anyway, back to this. So, what does the World Economic Forum have to do with Ripple and XRP, you ask? Well, this is from Wrath of Kahneman. 3 not quite related facts. Now, remember, this was a handbook, the Central Bank Digital Currency Handbook that was put out by the World Economic Forum. Their division called the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution is what put out this. And inside of their handbook, which went out to all central banks, was this: crypto assets designed for interbank or intrabank payments and settlements. Examples: JP Morgan coin, Ripple's XRP. And then he's tweeting out this article right here, which was just one example of a, let me see if I can hit the refresh so we can see this. A Bahrain pilot, they were going to pilot the toolkit. This is blocking me. It wants me to register. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, this was one country that took the CBDC toolkit, and they were going to do a pilot of using the toolkit. So how many other countries are doing that? But that came from the World Economic Forum, and now they're talking about this global reset. Finally, I wanted to tell you the people at Ledger are apparently putting something new out. Paper soon, no more. Resilience is coming. Wonder what it could be. Well, it looks to me like they're getting rid of all the 24 word phrases, and it looks to me like maybe, I wonder if they're going to be using something like Face ID or something. Actually, Rob Licker weighed in. He says, using face or fingerprint to create a private key. This is where things are going, folks. I'm the digital asset investor. And by the way, I just showed a video. I'm saying it after, just in case that video has to get clipped. I just showed a video, which if you don't see it in this video, it was from the World Economic Forum. It was a global reset promo video that they put together. You can go to their website and check it out if it didn't play here. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family that I believe that Greg Kidd is one of the most important people in the entire Ripple equation. So make sure that you go and watch my interview that I did from the other day if you haven't seen it yet. Thanks for listening.